Welcome everyone to this amazing video. Before we dive into it, I want to take a moment to tell you about this amazing community over at Zombies Nexus Discord. Whether you're a seasoned player, just like myself, or you're a total noob, just like me, they offer weekly events for all Call of Duty zombie games that cater to all levels of experience. Now you can join them to play custom maps, complete Easter eggs, or simply just, have fun killing zombies. If you want to join the Discord server, it'll be the first link in the description. They're trying to reach 200 members by the end of the month. So if you make that happen, that'd mean a lot to me and to them. Let's go ahead and move on to the actual video. After the painful process of about a week and a half of grinding, I've finally been able to get all the data I've needed to rank all 64 Cold War weapons. Not including the wonder weapons because that's a whole nother shit show I'd have to worry about because they have different firing modes, different variants. It'd be so much work to figure that out. They'd basically all be at the top of the list anyway. But as I said, there's 64 weapons in total, and this took so long because I got every weapon a tier 3 pack-a-punch and legendary. So that took a long time to do that. Just for one weapon, it probably took about like 30-40 minutes maybe, I don't know. But the way I'm ranking all these weapons is based off of DPS. The people in my BO3 ranking video felt like that would be better to do that, so I got all the data for you guys, everything. I'm skipping BO4 because fuck BO4. I ain't doing the ranking on that one. Now, the way I got to my conclusion of DPS is I took the rounds per minute, and yes, I got the rounds per minute for every one of these weapons. I literally did everything myself. Took the rounds per minute, divided that by 60, got the rounds per second, and multiplied that by their max headshot damage as well. And that is including the deadshot damage and any attachment that you can give on a weapon that gives it extra damage. Now, I have Dark Ether in every weapon, so there's not one weapon that I couldn't put attachment on. All of them are ranked fairly. Now, there's a few more things I gotta say. Is that one, the ballistic knife, that was a little awkward to rank, but I think I know how I'm gonna rank it. Obviously, it has a melee mode and a shooting mode where it can shoot knives. I'm just gonna include the higher damage output out of either one of those two. And for the pistols, I'm including the dual wield variants because, as I said, I wanted to get every weapon at their best they can be, their highest damage they can, to rank them all fairly. And obviously, all the pistols have dual wield variants. That's obviously gonna put them a lot higher on the list and everything else because, that's just a lot more damage you're putting out with two weapons versus just one singular weapon. For the melee weapons, instead of it being rounds per minute, it's going to be swings per minute. Basically the same idea, take the swings per minute, divide that by 60, get the swings per second, and then that's how I'm going to be ranking those. Now, for any weapon that is able to kill more than one zombie at a time, I'm not going to be counting that towards the DPS because that's just so much more complicated to think about. There's one zombie at a time, and that's basically how I'm going to be ranking. Now, I'm not saying this entire list is 100% accurate because, I'm a human. There's human error and all that stuff, and I had to go about this all myself, and obviously, knowing me being peaceful zombies, the guy that almost always fucks up on something in his videos, there has to be something that is messed up in this video that someone's going to catch. But I think I got everything just about covered. Let's go ahead and move on to the very, very bottom of this list, which really shouldn't surprise anybody, to be honest. So, of course, this is going to be the Sigma. This thing is literally a piece of shit. Now, if you didn't have to aim in with this thing when it was pack-a-punched, I feel like it'd be significantly better. But the problem is you have to aim in. It's so damn slow. It only has 3 shots before you have to reload it, which, I mean, it's a launcher. You get the point. Now, the DPS of this thing is 22,601 from what I got. Now, I feel like this thing is a lot better than that because obviously you can kill multiple zombies with it, but I'm not counting that. So this thing isn't like the absolute worst option if you had to use it, but it's still complete dog shit. Now we have the M79. Surprisingly, this thing is literally terrible when it comes to DPS on one zombie. It's 37,200 damage. Now, obviously, if you pack-a-punch this thing and get PhD, it is super, super good. But I think they actually nerfed this thing. When I was using it, it was a lot worse than what people made it out to be when PhD came out. I don't know if they nerfed it or something, but if you guys know or not, let me know because I'm really confused why this thing was not that good. Now it's a sledgehammer. This shouldn't be a surprise either, just like the Sigma. This is the slowest melee weapon in this game, and its DPS is 50,000. Not amazing, but it's just such a slow weapon. I don't even know who would ever use this thing. I don't even know why I got Dark Ether on it. It was probably the most pain in the ass of a weapon to ever use. Now we have a weapon that's probably very surprising to see this low, which is the Howler. Now, before you get angry, be like, what? I thought this thing was literally God tier or like the strongest weapon in this game. If we were to go based off of like pure raw DPS with like multiple zombies killed at one time or anything like that, I think this thing would be almost number 1 on the list. But because I'm counting each weapon as one individual zombie and not as multiple zombies at a time, this thing only has a DPS of 58,905. But don't let that basically like cloud your vision on how good this thing can be, because this thing is fantastic. It is really, really strong. Just as I said, the way I'm ranking these weapons based off of DPS of one zombie, it's not that good. Now we have the Ironhide. This is probably the worst shotgun in this game if we're not talking about DPS, but this has 60,984 DPS. Not amazing. It's really slow. You shoot one shot and then it has to do like a little animation and then you do another shot, and its reload is also very slow because you do one shell at a time. It's all around just a terrible shotgun. I don't even know why it's in the game. Now we have the machete. Obviously another melee weapon. It's not that fast. It's kind of slow, but the DPS of this is 62,500. It's also going to be the same with the scythe. This is also 62,500 damage. These two are basically the same thing. They're just reskins of each other, but however, the scythe can kill 4 zombies with one swing. That's the only benefit over it, but in terms of DPS, these two are basically the exact same weapons. Now the next three are also very, very similar. First we have the battle axe. It has a DPS of 75,000. Not a super interesting weapon. I mean, it's literally just an axe, that's it. Next we have the mace, which also is a very slow weapon or melee weapon, but it also has 75,000 DPS. I personally don't really like the mace. I put it above the battle axe because it's a little bit more unique. But actually we have the cane. I mean, it's a cane. It also has 75,000 DPS, but it's just funny. It's so weird to like just hit zombies with the cane. I thought you use a cane to walk, not to smack people across the face with. Now, next weapon we have up is the Sai. This has a DPS of 81,250. Now, this is actually the fastest melee weapon in this game. It melees the quickest out of any, and your running speed is actually boosted. The only problem with this thing is that, unlike all the melee weapons, how they all basically do 62,500 damage with one hit, this only does 31,250, I think. So it basically cuts the damage in half because of how fast it actually hits. But I mean, still, it goes up this high, even though it's not that strong of a melee weapon, but still, it still comes in this place. I love the side though. It's probably my favorite melee weapon in this game. Now we have the baseball bat. This melee weapon does 87,500 damage. Very simple melee weapon. I mean, most zombies games have a baseball bat. Next we have the knife. Obviously the most basic of melee weapons you could possibly get. This also has a DPS of 87,500 damage. Not much to say about the knife. I mean, it's literally just a knife. Every game has a knife. It's not anything special. Next we have a weapon that used to literally be the best weapon in this game when the game came out, but in terms of DPS, not so good. This is the Gallo. This has a DPS of 91,654. Now, to be honest, it's really not that amazing. I mean, yeah, if you train with it, it's good, but this game is mainly for camping. So if you were to camp with this thing, like I think I'm doing in the gameplay here, I can't even remember. It's been such a long week getting these gameplay for weapons, whatever. But using this for camping, absolute doo-doo. And in the higher rounds, you're going to be training with it, and the zombies are very fast, and the armor zombies start spawning in, and the Gallo kind of just drops off really hard. Now we have the RPG. This has a DPS, surprisingly, of 100,000. It's a lot better than the Sigma, miles better than it. It's so much faster to use, but again, it's an explosive. It's not really that good. It's kind of slow. I mean, it's it's rounds per minute, not very good because it's a launcher, but it's still pretty solid. It's not even close to being bad, but I mean, it's still a launcher after all. Now we have the Wakizashi. It's exactly the same DPS as the RPG from what I got from my testing. It's 100,000. I think this is probably my favorite melee weapon in terms of like looks, and the size like my favorite just because of how fast it is. But the Wakizashi is literally like a katana. I don't think it's like full-size katana, but it's still pretty cool to have in zombies. Now it's the hammer and sickle. This has a DPS of 112,500. I don't really have anything else to say about the hammer and sickle. It's literally just a hammer and a sickle. What the fuck do you want me to say? Now we sadly have my favorite weapon in this game. I think, I don't fucking know. It's the Swiss. It's obviously as a sniper, the fastest sniper in this game, I think, but it only has a DPS of 116,404. I'm just kind of sad that that's the case for this. Now we have the strongest shotgun in this game in terms of DPS, which is a street sweeper. This is actually pretty damn solid. Once you pack a punch it, obviously non-pack, you have to reload each individual shell. Literally the slowest reloading weapon in like any COD game. When you pack it, it becomes very solid. Its DPS is 117,612. Not like fantastic, but it's the best shotgun in terms of DPS. So there you go. So now we have the best melee weapon in this game, which is the E-Tool. This has a DPS of 125,000. I think it has pretty much the same swinging speed as the Sai, maybe a little bit slower, and it still does the same amount of damage as every other melee weapon besides the Sai, which is 62,500. But because it swings so fast, its DPS is just so much higher than all the other melee weapons. Now we have the biggest piece of shit in this game, which I personally think it's even worse than the Sigma, but because of its like 220,000 headshot damage or whatever, this is the ZRG, the Zerg, whatever you want to call it, I don't care, too slow. But its DPS is 126,000. I mean, as I said, its max headshot damage is is like 220,000, which I believe is like the highest in terms of just like no ring of fire, no nothing, just weapon, legendary, pack 3. But the reason why its DPS is so much lower than its actual headshot damage is because its fire rate is literally the slowest thing you will ever fucking see. Now we have the nail gun. I'm surprised this thing actually made it this high because it's a nail gun, but its DPS is just slightly higher than the ZRG, and its DPS is 126,720. I mean, it's just a nail gun. I think the only downside of this thing is that its clip is very small. But that's kind of it for the nail gun. We have the Tundra. Sadly, this thing is also this low. The snipers don't really stack up in terms of DPS compared to every weapon in this game. They're still good, but they're not really good in terms of all weapons. But the Tundra's DPS is 150,988, which was a bit higher, but still solid sniper. I have the Type 63. I think this is the lowest tac rifle on this list so far. It's kind of terrible, I can't lie there. The DPS of 157,670. I mean, it's a what, like almost in the top 40, not quite, but it's close enough. Now we have the Krig. I think this is kind of like the cover weapon. I mean, I think the XM4 actually is, but the Krig is kind of just like that basic ass AR along with the XM4 that's in this game. Its DPS of 157,992, just barely above the Type 63. And we have a weapon that was kind of hard to figure out what to do with, which is the Marshall. It's actually the weakest pistol on this list. Its DPS of 158,400. Now, you might be wondering, that seems kind of low if you actually know the pistol damages. Yes, the Marshall is actually a lot lower because I couldn't really use Dragon's Breath because that would have been such a pain in the ass to figure out, because Dragon's Breath, basically when you shoot a zombie with that, it does a whole bunch of damage in one like second. The problem is it's so hard to figure out what that damage is because all the numbers are on screen. They're all just kind of mashed together and I can't figure out what that is. So I took off Dragon's Breath and that's pretty much the DPS I got without it. But it could be a lot stronger if you can figure out the DPS with Dragon Breath on. We have the QBZ, very basic AR, 159,221 is the DPS. It's kind of it for the QBZ. Now we have the M82, or basically just the Barrett, but kind of, you know, shafted because of Cold War mechanics. So much better in the previous games. But anyway, the M82 in this game has a DPS 160,590. It's kind of a lot better than I remember using it. I think when I actually got this thing, Dark Ether, was when XP was so bad that you couldn't even like level up your weapon in a game or anything. I just have such terrible memories of this thing, but I mean, it's the Barrett. There you go. Kind of got shafted in Cold War because, you know, it's just over the years, man, it gets worse and worse. I don't know why. Now we have the Lapa. I mean, it's just kind of here in Cold War. I don't really ever remember this thing being here, but its DPS is 163,680. I mean, it kind of looks like the USAS from previous games, if you know what that shotgun is, but it said, I think it's an SMG. Might be mistaken about that, but I mean, it's just a Lapa, man. And we have the C58. I think this might have the highest ammo count in this game. Could be wrong about that, but its DPS is 164,985. And it's just kind of a basic AR. Has a fucking huge amount of ammo. Kind of it. We have the next tac rifle, which is the AUG. This has a DPS 167,644. Not amazing. I mean, it's there. The AUG in this game kind of sucks. Burst weapons in this game aren't really that amazing, other than, you know, there's gonna be one on the list that's very high up. The AUG just kind of sucks in this game, I can't lie. Now we have the AK-47, just a very basic AR. Everyone knows what it is. Its DPS of 170,518. I mean, it's not amazing in this game, but it's obviously not the worst thing ever. It's basically like right in the middle of the list, which I mean kind of makes sense. Basic AR in the middle of the list. There you go. You have the EM2. I'm sure most of you don't even know what this thing is because it's just kind of there. I mean, it's pretty cool, I guess. I kind of like it. It shoots slow, but its DPS of 170,945. It's literally right in the middle of the list. I don't really have anything bad to say about it. It's just kind of there. Now, I think we have the strongest sniper in this game, which is the Pellington. Kind of surprising. I know you might think it's like the Tundra, but it's really not. The Pellington has a DPS of 174,240. I'm surprised this thing's actually the strongest sniper and how high up it is because, you know, snipers just aren't really that good against other weapons. But I mean, there you go. If you want to know what sniper is the best in this game, I guess the DPS doesn't lie. The numbers don't lie. It's the Pellington. There you go. I have the most basic weapon in this game, which is the XM4. I think it's literally the cover weapon for this game. Don't know. Don't care. But its DPS is 174,647. Just barely above the Pellington. But there you go. Number 30. I mean, it cracked the top 30. There you go. What else is there to say about the XM4? It's just basic as fuck. Now we have the Grav. I think this might be the Galil version Cold War. I don't know. Be completely mistaken on that. The DPS 176,712. Just an AR. Not really anything interesting about it. But if it is the Galil, that's pretty cool. Don't remember if it is or not, but if you want to tell me, you can, I guess. Now it's the first LMG on this list, which is the RPD. At a DPS 178,341. The RPD in this game kinda is buns. I can't lie, it sucks. Now we have our next LMG, the M60. This has a DPS 181,984. M60 just kind of sucks as well. Any weapon in this game that has a lot of ammo tends to not be that good, which kind of sucks because you want to have a lot of ammo, but when you have a lot of ammo, your fire rate tends to go down and your reload speed tends to go down, and that's kind of the downside of LMGs. Now we have another tac rifle, the DMR. I actually love the DMR in this game. The DPS 182,206. Very solid choice, but I wouldn't say it's the best choice you could ever make. Now the AK-74U, just like the AK-47, just very iconic. Everyone knows what this thing is. The DPS 184,584. That's it. Just the AK-74U. Nothing else to say about it. Now we have the MG82. It's kind of like the MG42's like younger brother, I guess we'll say. The DPS of this is 194,656. I believe it is one of the fastest shooting weapons in this game. And I know for a fact it's the fastest shooting LMG. It's just a fun weapon to use. Doesn't have a whole lot of ammo though for an LMG, which kind of sucks. Now I have the UGR. This thing is kind of annoying to use. I took off the explosive rounds in this thing because using the explosive rounds literally is the most impossible thing ever. You just can't use them because the zombies constantly fall over. But without explosive rounds, the DPS is 195,800. Pretty solid. I didn't expect it to be this high, but there it is. Now we have the best LMG in this game, which is kind of surprising because you'd think it'd be the MG82 with its fire rate, but the Stoner actually is the best in terms of DPS. The DPS for this, 196,850. The best LMG, I kind of can see that because when I used it, it felt really solid. But of course, it's an LMG. I think it has one of the slowest reloads out of any of them. Not certain, but it's still LMG after. Now we have the Groza. This has a DPS 198,326. It shouldn't be an AR to me. Like, to me, it feels like it should be an SMG because it's such a small weapon. But it's so close to reaching 200k. But with our next weapon, which is the Carve, this finally reaches our 200,000 mark. These are weapons that, like, honestly, if you want to run them, go for it. They're solid weapons. This has a DPS of 201,458. Solid choice. It's still a burst weapon, which isn't amazing, but it's still a good choice. Now we have the Farah. This has a DPS of 201,960, just barely above the Carve, but solid choice. Now we have a weapon that I literally would never think would be this high because of the type of weapon it is, but this is the Milano. This has the highest headshot damage out of any SMG, unless I'm remembering wrong, but this has a DPS of 206,900. You would never think that. I think it's an Uzi actually. You never think that it's this good, but for some reason its headshot damage is so high. Its fire rate's a little lower, but still, I'm really surprised this is this high. Now we have the FFAR, basically a super upgraded FAMAS. In other games the FAMAS suck, but in this game it is very solid. It has a lot of ammo. The DPS is 211,056. Very solid choice. That's kind of it. So now we have the most recently added AR to Cold War, which I'm assuming almost everybody forgot about because it's literally just a reskin of the AK-47. They kind of just got super lazy. Even the animation is the same as AK-47, but this is the Vargo. This is a DPS 212,464. It's pretty solid. I mean, there's nothing really wrong with it. It's just a very lazy weapon that they added. Now, this is getting to a point where I don't even know if I did this right because some of these numbers don't seem right for the type of weapons, but next we have the LC-10. I had always thought the LC-10 was literally a piece of shit, but I guess not. The DPS is 213,430. It's all because the fire rate on most of the SMGs that are up here are so high that, you know, that's what makes them so high up here, because their fire rate so much and then their headshot multiplier, then their DPS gets so much higher. Like, kind of strange. Now we have the Bullfrog. This weapon you just kind of would never think it'd be up here, but it's up here. It has a lot of ammo for an SMG, but its DPS is 214,643. It's a solid choice. I mean, I don't feel like it's a weapon you go out of your way to get, but it definitely is good if you need it. Now we have a weapon that I don't understand how the DPS is this high. This is the KSP. It's a burst SMG, has the slowest fire rate out of any SMG. I'm very confident of that. I don't even know how it's up here. I swear I made a mistake somewhere because this should not be up here, but I guess it's here. The DPS is 221,958. Very solid choice. I would say that it's not good because it's a burst weapon, so if you're in a corner, you're probably gonna die. Now we have the ballistic knife. I mentioned in the intro how this is kind of hard to rank because, you know, it has a melee and a shooting mode, but the melee mode is actually a lot weaker than, you know, the knives that are shooting. Now, if you're counting just the knives or the strongest version of it, this will get you a DPS of 222,600. I believe the ballistic knife is literally like the strongest weapon you could use against Orda, unless they fixed it, but you could like two-shot Orda when the ballistic knife came out. It was absolutely insane. Ballistic knife is still a very solid choice, but it doesn't have a whole lot of knives you can shoot, but it's still, you can melee with it. It's exactly the same as other melees, 62,500 damage when you melee, pack 3. Just a solid choice. Now we have the crossbow, or the Shadow Hunter as it's called in this game. A lot of the specialist weapons, they're either at the top or the bottom of the list. The Shadow Hunter, or crossbow, is very, very good in this game. The DPS is 228,800. Now the unpacked variant is probably the worst weapon in this game because its reload is terrible. You can shoot one shot at a time and you never think to pack it, but when you pack it, its reload becomes really fast, and if you have Ring of Fire, oh my god, dude, you're not going to die with this thing, and it can shoot through more than one zombie, not counting that of course, but it's actually a really, really good choice. Getting into the top 10, this shouldn't really be surprising because the PPSH cracks our number 10 spot. Now this has a lot of ammo. I don't know if it has the most amount of ammo because in this game it doesn't show your max ammo count if it goes above 1,023. I think the C58 and this weapon are the only two that actually do it in this game. The PPSH in this game has a DPS of 231,176. I hate the sound of it, but it is a very good weapon in this game. Now coming at a number 9 spot, we have the MP5. This has a DPS of 244,530. I'm kind of surprised at this high because it doesn't feel that strong, but I guess it's because of its fire rate that it's up here. Now, you remember earlier I mentioned how there would be a attack rifle or burst weapon, whatever I said. I can't remember already. I'm pretty slow. There would be a burst weapon this high up on the list. This is the M16. I'm sure everyone knows about the M16 in this game. It's a very, very strong weapon. The DPS is 250,934. If I was counting like the actual bursts individually as DPS instead of the rounds per minute, I think this thing would be way higher. But the problem is I'm counting DPS overall, and that is what I got, 250,934. Now number 7, we have the Tech 9. This really shouldn't be surprising. This weapon's just kind of overpowered in general. It's really good in zombies, really good in multiplayer. It's one of those rare weapons that just don't really have a downside. The only problem I think could be wrong with this is if you don't have it leveled up, it's a single fire SMG, which is doo-doo. Once you get the full auto attachment on it, oh my god. The DPS is 271,228. It's very good. It's like my go-to weapon in this game, and there's nothing really wrong with it, to be honest. And number 6, the fastest firing weapon in this game, the MAC-10. I think it can shoot like 1,152 rounds per minute, which is absurd. The DPS is so close to 300k, but it's 295,680. We are getting so close to that 300k mark, but literally the next like 5 weapons, I don't even understand why they're so high. Now number 5, the M1911. You're gonna see a reoccurring theme with the next few weapons, but the 1911 has a DPS of 345,945. If you remember earlier, I mentioned how I'm counting the dual wield variants of the pistols, and if you've been keeping track, you'll realize that all the pistols are in the top 5 except for the marshals. If I wasn't counting the dual wield variant, I'm certain to still be like in the top 20, but I'm counting the dual wield variant just to make it a little bit more interesting. Number 4, this doesn't make any sense. I swear to God, I had to have made a mistake. But this is the OTS. This is the last SMG on the list, the highest SMG, top 4. I don't understand, but the data checks out for this thing. I rechecked it over and over, and the DPS is 364,400. I don't know if there's a mistake or something going on here, but that is it for the OTS. Now I have the Diamatti. This has a DPS 382,579. I would have thought the Diamattis actually would have been the strongest in this game, but surprisingly they are not. There's still 2 more pistols that are better than it. Number 2, we have the Magnum. You would never think the Magnum would be this high, but the DPS 392,162. The reason the Magnum is so high up on this list is not because of its dual wield, it's because of its headshot. One of the pistols headshot, max headshot damage basically, is 57,000. That doesn't make any sense at all. Other than like the snipers, That is the closest thing that gets to snipers. That's 57,000 for a pistol. I don't get that. And number one, this isn't really surprising to me because of how overpowered these things are. Almost everybody says that they're the best weapon in the game. I might be mistaken about that, but I've heard so many times that the AMP or the amps are like so overpowered in this game. Their DPS 396,264. I don't even get how they're this high. I know they're like full auto dual wield pistols, but really this high? They're so close to 400k. I'm sure that they would be 400k if you did the data super accurately, but that's what I got. Number one, AMP. Don't know how it's this high, but that is literally the entire list of weapons. All 64 have been ranked. If you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like. Join the Discord server, please. I beg, not really. But if you have any video suggestions, make sure you do join my Discord server, and you can tell me personally, DM me if you want, put them in the video suggestions tab, or just simply comment. But you should also subscribe, turn notifications on so you don't miss out on a video, man. Please do it. I think that's all I got. If you guys are a little upset I didn't include one weapons, I'm sorry, but I just was so tired of getting all 64 weapons in like 1 week. I couldn't do anymore. I'm sorry, but that's all I got. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out. I love all of you.